All right, how's it going, everybody? This is the Awesemo.com NHL DFS Strategy show, and we've got a big 8-game slate to talk about. Hopefully, you're having some success on the early. Well, I guess the early just locked, but hopefully, you do have success in that if you did decide to play that. I did not play it, but there looks like some of the contests were actually decent, despite it only being a 3-game slate. Looks like we're getting some injury news right now. Stamkos out for a while. Clefbaum maybe had surgery. I'm not exactly sure. Anyways, how's it going? Maybe you guys had some success last night. The slate got pretty interesting after the end of the 7 Eastern games. Looked like it was going to be pretty low scoring, and then there was quite a bit of scoring towards the end there. Today we will have the NHL rankings. These are going to be free when they get unlocked, but here's the link to these. Check those out for free. We have cheat sheets that I did myself. Look at that beautiful face. Brent Burns is your cover boy for today. Cheat sheets are in there. Just a quick look at the slate. If you want to help build some competitive lineups. How many jerseys do I own? Not enough. But yeah, this is my Golden Knights jersey. I don't know. I just cycle through them. This is just what I wear. For whatever reason, I don't know why I started wearing a bunch of jerseys, but then I won a gift card. Playing on FanDuel or something, maybe like a year ago, and ordered a bunch more. So, yeah, that's the story behind that. But it is also, well, let's go through Yahoo really quick. Yahoo is the presenting sponsor of the Awesemo.com NHL DFS Strategy show. They've got some good contests as always. They're filling up pretty quickly over on Yahoo for NHL. Lower management fees, you're going to get about under 12% management fee, which is 75% of what you're going to pay over on DraftKings and FanDuel. So should be a place you should consider playing. Use promo code Awesemo to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. They have NBA contests, soccer. They'll have PGA for next week, MLB. I'm excited to play over there. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports is one of the most trusted names in fantasy sports. It is live final day, so that should be interesting as well. DraftKings, as far as I know, they don't have a slate we can play along with, but I do have the information up here. So it is 100K to first, 60K to the runner-up. I think that's a lot different than last year. The last couple of years, I think it was 40K to second, or maybe even 30 to second. So for whatever reason, there's more money in the pool, it appears. I think they're running qualifiers with more entrants. So congrats if you're there, if you're in Nashville or you're playing from home, and you ended up winning one of these seats. They're hard to win, and a bunch of really, really good players have at least one seat. So should be a pretty good slate. I think they didn't get cheated with the games that we've got tonight too. So it will be good. A bunch of the top players, like I said, are up there. Slewfoot, Drewby from Daily Roto, SLMT. I think his name's Taylor. Met him. I talked to him briefly. I think his name's Taylor. Anyways, he's got a couple tickets, and he's a really good player. And he had actually a really big night the other day. B. Kreider, of course, Josh Harris. There's a lot of really good players. One man Wolfpack. It should be a pretty highly contested contest, I would think. So will be fun. B. Kreider everywhere. Yeah, B. Kreider. I'm sure he's maxed out the I'm sure he's maxed out the NBA ones as well on DraftKings and FanDuel. So how do you qualify? You have to win a qualifying tournament. They're super top heavy. They're basically winner take all. And yeah, they're hard to win. So I got second and third a bunch of times this year. Didn't work out for me, but can't complain with the amount of good players they've got in here. All right, what else do we got for today? Went through the stack rankings. Let's actually look at yesterday really quick on lineup study. Yeah, you have to win first in those. I don't think they did any double giveaways this season. So you do actually have to win first. It's out of like 80 people or 100 people. I can't remember. Depends on the price point. It's like 1,500 people for the $15, 1,500 entrants, I should say. Cash lineup, it appears, took it down last night. N Lord 77, Stastny, Carlson, Aho, Giroux, Provorov, Skinner, Parise, Spurgeon, and Francouz is your winning lineup. Very little correlation in this lineup. You got Giroux and Provorov, Parise, Spurgeon, I suppose, but just had some really good one-offs here, and that's really all it took last night for N Lord 77. Only won by 0.6 points. I think this was more of a stacked lineup. Let's see. Second place, Stahl, Parise, Fiala, Spurgeon, Montour, and then Philly won. So this is your 4-3-1 uncorrelated goalie. Francouz was huge. He might be going tonight. Yeah, that is my username. It's Tommy Nation 1. Yeah, that's me. Stick lift last night. Here's what we got. This user took it down. Just one lineup: Couture, Giroux, Voracek, Philly 1, Carolina 1, and then Gerard, Gavrikov, and Robin Leonard. Leonard led up an early one, and then he settled down really nicely. And man, Vegas is dangerous. If they, for whatever reason, decide to start him, or they just, for whatever reason, they have to start him if Fleury gets hurt or whatever, or struggles, like that's incredible. I wonder if they'll actually end up going to him. They probably won't unless Fleury gets hurt, right? I mean, I don't know, but Leonard's just ridiculous. I can't believe that they've got those two goalies. Vegas is still 8-1. Man, that's nuts. All right, so here's what we got today. We'll go to lineups. Awesemo. There we go. And we're gonna start with the 7 Eastern games here. As always, we're gonna leave off this Blackhawks-Panthers game. So Vancouver, Toronto, 3.1 implied total for the Canucks, 3.6 for the Maple Leafs. We have Thatcher Demko and Freddie Anderson are your goalies. Going in this game, I mean, the Leafs are going to be popular, right? And looking at our ownerships right now, Matthews, the highest owned player on the slate, as he should be. The question about the matchups here, I do question a little bit, I guess, who's going to go up against who, whether it's Tavares, Kerfoot, Nylander against the Pettersson line, or if they just go up against the Horvat, Pearson, Eriksson line. I don't think it matters too much for Leafs 1. I'm playing Leafs 1 regardless. They grade out pretty well for us. We kind of know who's going to... we at least have an idea of who's going to play, at least on this top line. Second line, Kerfoot was up there for a while last game. It was Spezza there for a while. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do. It could be different in warm-ups, but really like this Leafs top line. If the slate started right now, though, it's a good spot for sure, but their ownership is really, really high. It's hard for me to justify playing a ton of Leafs over some of these other stacks very often. So right now I'm not quite where the field's at. Oh, I'm not at where the field's at on Matthews, especially. But, yeah, Fiala in the Wild did kill it yesterday. You're right. Matthews, Nylander, pretty good ownership on Nylander we're getting here. We're expecting him to be, Toronto too. You're getting pretty good ownership there with Tavares and Nylander, even though that's the lesser of the two lines. Still has really good numbers, and they still have two participants on the top power play. So I'm getting to more of Toronto too. The question is just again where are we gonna go? Is it gonna be Kerfoot? Is it gonna be Mulligan? I mean, I have no idea. It could be Spezza in warmups, but that line has been getting shaken up quite a bit. Pedersen, Miller, and Toffoli is my preferred Vancouver stack. Looking at them right now, I didn't see them coming up a ton for me. They're really low owned. They're too low owned. I think I haven't looked at the top stack tool yet, but I can almost assure you that they'll be underrepresented in the top stack tool. They're all in the top power play. Big total here going into Toronto. I like it a lot for Vancouver too. So if I'm not getting to them when I'm running crunches, I've done more of this recently. I learned from baseball season that I need to have a little bit of my own intuition. Feels like I need to have some control over what goes into my lineups rather than just like it being a purely numbers game. I think there is some nuance in matchups in NHL DFS. So I do like Vancouver too quite a bit here. If I'm not getting to them, I'll force some of them in. There's no way I end up with zero of this line. I think they're just too good. Yeah, it is. It is warm today. 35-40, Josh says, in premium Slack. Yeah, it's pretty nice. I was outside earlier today. Yeah, so Vancouver 2 is really all I got on the Vancouver side. Defensemen aren't super interesting here. It's the normal guys, Tyson Barrie. If you want to play Hughes at 5,400 and correlate, that's fine, but it's not really a guy that I'm one-offing when he's at that price. Other defensemen, we kind of got pretty lucky with the Justin Holl thing the other night. I think he had an assist, an empty net goal, and then I think he had one shot on goal. Or two shots on goal maybe. So he didn't really do a ton. I think his peripherals have been okay, and he's playing a lot of minutes. So he's still fine for 3,100. And he probably won't be too popular. It's not like he had a monster game or anything. I do kind of like him for 3,100 if you're one-offing, or you could go to Sandin or Dermott if you wanted to get even puntier with it. But yeah, the important thing here is Leafs 1 is going to be chalk. As I usually am with the most chalky line of the night, if there's some separation between, the top line of the night on an 8-game slate and the next 2, 3, 4 lines, I'm usually just under the field on the top line. And it feels like I'm lower on the Leafs than most people. Like Matthews always gets a ton of ownership. There's a couple of guys like that, Matthews, McDavid, Ovechkin. They're all great players, but I feel like I'm never as high on them as the field usually is, and especially because I stack a lot, so the exposures just look flatter for me than our ownership sometimes. All right, let's go to Carolina. Montreal, 3.1 implied total for the Hurricanes, 3 for the Canadiens. We have, we're going to call him Alex N in net for the Hurricanes. I'm not going to attempt that name. Charlie Lindgren starting. Now, no carry price here for Montreal, 3.1 total for the Canes. Again, 3 for Montreal. This is closer to a pick 'em. I think the line's moved a little bit. Alex has Carolina favored. Carolina did their best to come back last night. Maybe not the toughest matchup in the world. I still think you can go to the Trocheck, Niederreiter, Nitschus line. They were not all that impressive last night, but they're going to get probably some time against this Domi line, which seems pretty good. And which seems pretty good to go against Domi, not the most talented defensive center. And then I I like Montreal 1 a lot here. I wonder if people will just avoid them because Carolina's a perceived tough matchup, and it's not a huge total. Their price is a little low, and so maybe people will be on them. It appears they're not just going to be completely disregarded right now. People love playing Gallagher, and for good reason. 6,700 for him, I think, is a good price, and in the context of a full stack, it looks very favorable to me. They're probably going to go up against Carolina 1, which is about the best Carolina line you can go up against. They're not great defensively. Cliffy ran you through it yesterday. So if you watched yesterday, I can't do a better breakdown than what Cliffy did on these Carolina lines. I just think if you are going up against Carolina 1, that's generally a pretty good matchup if you can generate offense. And we know Montreal 1 can generate a lot of offense. Carolina down to their third goaltender. I like it. I like it a lot for Montreal. Montreal 1. And that's really all I love in this game. Like I mentioned Carolina 3. If you wanted to go Domi 1-off or something like that, you could certainly do that. On my DraftKings balance? Oh, from earlier. Yeah, I guess you could probably see that, couldn't you? Yeah, well, it wasn't really trying to flex. I don't know. Sometimes I pull up DraftKings on there, but I thought I had the bar high enough. Anyways, doesn't matter. I mean, whatever. You can see my balance. That doesn't really mean anything, the balance, anyways. But Domi, Wheel, and Byron is also just a pure punt stack. I think I'm going to get to a little bit. I feel like I always get to some of these home team third lines. They do break it. It feels like more often than some people like to admit. Like some people will just completely disregard third lines. But I think the reason you play these third lines is not because you rarely get a third line that's actually good. But if they're cheap, if they maybe have one or two good players on them, and they allow you to get maybe a stud defenseman, maybe a Yossi or someone like that, maybe a Burns, and it's a Boston one night, or even there's like Toronto. It's just a good way to get unique lineups, and so there are some third lines that I'll definitely use tonight. Nashville 3, yep, we've used them a bunch of times. I think the secret's out on them, but I think Montreal 3 is going to be in my mix of third lines that I sprinkle in here and there tonight. And to be honest, I don't even know if I consider that the third line. Is Suzuki really the second line center? Domi's going to play 16, 17 minutes, I would imagine, most nights. And he's hot, as you guys are pointing out in the chat. So there you go. Another reason to play him. On the blue line here, it's Petrie at 4,800. He is the power play 1 quarterback, and he's going with the line that I like the most. If you want to do Montreal 3, though, Domi, Wheel, Weber, there's your secondary power play hookup. Let's go to Detroit and Ottawa. 2.6 implied total for the Red Wings, 3.3 for the Senators. Bernier, maybe Howard. I'm not exactly sure who's going for the Wings. It is Marcus Hogberg, confirmed for the Sens. And, man, if you just play the projections tonight, you are going to get a ton of this Ottawa, not only this top line, but this Ottawa top 6. Now, the question is, what do we do with them? Ottawa's not a good team, but they are pretty decent for DFS. And this, at home versus Detroit, especially if this line's going to be stacked up like this. By the way, do we have confirmation now that I'm looking at it? Do we have confirmation on these Detroit lines? I'm scrolling through my Twitter list. Maybe Vots, if you're in chat, have we seen confirmation on these lines? Because it was Larkin, Bertuzzi, and Mantha for the whole game against Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, you lose 7-1. Maybe you think about switching things up. But if you guys in chat have seen anything, I just realized I didn't check back on this Detroit trio, so maybe they skated yesterday. I'm not exactly sure. But anyways, I think it's pretty likely at some point you see Larkin, Bertuzzi, and Mantha on the same line. And if that's the case, that's not really a line I want a huge piece of, in that I don't want to target against them very often. Like, it is Detroit still. So yeah, you can score on anyone, but that line is just, they're really good. Offensively, they're as good as a defensive line as you're going to find on the Detroit Red Wings. And I think if they do load up that line, Bertuzzi questionable and Fabry is in. So yeah, I don't know about these lines for Detroit. I think what I might do is either just power play stack them or leave them alone, or on Fantasy Cruncher maybe just put Mantha on the top line and get some combination of those top 4 forwards. Okay. Fabry, Larkin, Perlini subbing in for Bertuzzi. But so if Bertuzzi's out, then it's Mantha probably goes right back up there, right? I don't know. I mean, man, I don't have a ton of faith that these Detroit lines are going to stick. So Larkin is going to be the anchor for me in my Detroit stacks. I'll probably be above the field on Detroit. It seems like I always am on this Larkin line. They're not getting a ton of love in our ownership projections, which I like. But I would really like to see Mantha skate with Larkin, obviously, they're a little bit expensive, but the spot against Ottawa is pretty good as well. Now, right now I'm getting to kind of a ton of Ottawa 2, and I'm fine with getting a ton of Ottawa 1. I think if they're chalk again, I think they're pretty good chalk. So Bobby Ryan had the hat trick. As a line, though, they didn't really go crazy. I think they could here, especially if they get to avoid the Larkin line. Tierney, Balcers, and Connor Brown kind of took the shutdown role in the last game, and you would expect that to be the same matchups. They did win that game. Ryan had a hat trick. I'm assuming they're going to keep things the same. So if they get to go up against the Larkin line, and hopefully it's Larkin and Mantha, then you get Norris, Kachuk, and Ryan just getting to eat on this Detroit depth. So Ottawa hasn't been that bad at home. I agree. They're still not like even an average defensive team. But yeah, Ottawa 1 is good chalk. It looks like they're pretty popular. I'm right there with them. Once again, probably going to be one of my highest exposed stacks of the night. Going to be top 2 or 3 for sure. It's just too good of value. They allow you to get so much. It's chalk, and it's going to be harder to make unique lineups, but you can still do it because of everything they open up. They're fully correlated on the power play. It's a good power play spot against Detroit, as it always is. Yeah, they're really tough for me to avoid here, even tougher than the other night. So if they're my highest exposed stack, I'd be pretty pumped about it. I don't have a ton of reservations about them. They stuck together. Their prices didn't really come up. I know Bobby Ryan's going to be popular. They're going to be higher up in the higher stakes you go. So just be aware of that. If you're playing the 366 or whatever it is tonight, they could be really popular, but for good reason. You can mix in Connor Brown if you'd like. You could full power play stack Ottawa. There's just a lot of ways to attack them. You can stack the second line. It looks like you're getting some pretty good ownership on them as well. So Ottawa top 6, fantastic. Detroit power play 1 is how I'm looking to go at it on the other side. Red Wings have been atrocious. They have been atrocious. Ryan stinks, empty net goals. I mean, he didn't stink last game. Shabbat 5,800, playing a ton of minutes recently. It's still a little bit expensive, but if I'm here talking about how much Ottawa 1 I'm going to play, then in some of my lineups I'm going to have Shabbat. There's just There's no getting around that. I'm not going to leave off the power play 1 quarterback in all my Ottawa 1 stacks. And then I like Mike Riley again, 4,100. So I'm just in on Ottawa today. I don't necessarily think you need to drop down to the third line. Pretty much going to keep it in the top 6, but pretty good chance that they're my highest owned team on today's slate. When you factor in defensemen, top 2 lines, there's 2 lines you can attack with, power play stack, like I said, just a ton of different ways to make good lineups playing Ottawa Senators tonight. So not often we're going to say that, but looks like they just missed the boat on pricing here, with Detroit being just terrible. Colorado, Nashville, 2.7 implied total for the Avs, 2.9 for the Preds. Could be Pavel Francouz again, although he got a lot of work last night in Carolina. And then it's probably going to be UC Saros for the Preds. He's likely. He's not confirmed. Looks like the Preds are going to stick with these lines that you're seeing on the screen. Turris, Forsberg, Granlund, Johansson, Blackwell, Sissons, Bonino, Grimaldi, and Craig Smith. Now, this is listed as the 4th line, which is messing me up a little bit because you usually don't play 4th lines. But I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep them in my pool for sure. Like that's too good of a line. They're going to play their minutes, even if it's all spread out. If they get 13, 14 minutes, going up against the depth for Colorado, which they don't have a lot of. Like, this line has some of the best numbers on the entire slate in the entire NHL. If you look at lines that have played over 100 minutes, I'm gonna pull it up right here for reference. Lines that have played over 100 minutes on the season, expected goals for per 60, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ninth best on the season, which is crazy. They're in the company of Hall, Dvorak, Garland, Teravainen, Aho, Svechnikov, Backlund, Kachuk, Mangiapane, Danault, Tatar, Gallagher, the Pedersen, Miller, and Virtanen trio, and then my personal favorite, Pacioretty, Stone line. So they're in elite company, and they're going to get favorable matchups when they're deployed at home. It would be a second line on most teams, probably. They're listed as the 4th. I just ignore that for today. And then I suppose I'm at least okay on this Turris, Forsberg, Granlund line. They're fully correlated on the power play. I think they might be more popular than they should be. I have no idea how these matchups are going to go. They're probably not going to get McKinnon, which is the important thing. Also, Colorado did swap their lines around quite a bit last night, so they could see something different. No morning skate today. However, 7 Eastern start, so we'll keep an eye on this one up until lock. We should know with 20 or so minutes prior to the slate actually locking here whether Burakovsky's going to stick up there. I was watching some of the game and I noticed that Landeskog was not with McKinnon for some time, so I'm not sure if Bednar is going to shake things up or if he's going to just start the same way as he started last night with these lines that we're showing on the screen. But not a really appealing game outside of just wanted to mention this Nashville line. Catching up on comments here. Ottawa and Detroit are the new Yossi. I mean, I'm not jamming in 50% of either one of them, so I guess they can't be considered Yossi. Yossi 7,200. He's not my highest owned guy. He's up there, though. I don't have a defenseman right now over 32%. So Yossi's below that. They'll be closer to 15, 20% of Yossi. 7,200, we still have him graded as one of the best plays on the slate, and Burns is 7,900. So when you're getting that far up, it's hard not to take the $700 and sacrifice the point in the projections that we have them separated by, or maybe even less than a point. Actually, let me check this out and see what we have them separated by. Yossi 13, about Burns is at 13.5. So yeah, like less than half of a point you're sacrificing for $700 when you're paying $7K plus for a defenseman. And they're probably going to be similar ownerships, I would imagine. Burns had one dud game in what looked like the nut spot. Maybe people will back being soured on him. I'm not soured on Burns. And I'm not really soured on Yossi either. Like, he just needs to... When's the last time he's had a multi-point game? He hasn't had a multi-point game in 10, 11 games since Calgary. So, he's still getting shots. He's still blocking shots. Threat for the double bonus every time he takes the ice. And he's going to play 25 minutes. So, even though it's not I don't think it's a great spot for the Preds necessarily. I'm not leaving Yossi off in terms of one-offs. Or if I do stack that second line, that Turris line. Stars, Blues, speaking of not exciting games, 2.3 implied total for the Stars, 2.9 for the Blues. Khudobin, maybe Bishop against Jake Allen. No one confirmed yet for the Stars. Allen is confirmed for the Blues. I'm not to the point where I'm just crossing line, like teams off going into St. Louis, but they're just really tough defensively. Despite what we saw against Chicago the other night, they limited the Islanders the next night. They're just really tough, and they're deep. And the one note here is Kyrou is out. De La Rose is expected to come back into the lineup on that third line in Kyrou's spot. St. Louis 1 is still cheap. St. Louis 1 is going to be a line I take some flyers on tonight. I just think they're better than a 15-5 line, which is what they're priced at on DraftKings. They're all on the power play still. Dallas does take a lot of penalties too. So you're going to need probably some damage to be done at 5-on-4, or if they get a 5-on-3 or whatever. You're still going to need a handful of goals from St. Louis 1, but I just feel like the explosion's coming for them at some point. It just seems like too good of a trio for them not to have good offensive numbers. And I don't think the Sagan line is one that you need to avoid. Sagan, Ben, and Corey Perry. So they're probably going to go up against them, and that's perfectly fine. St. Louis 2 is also super cheap. We saw them have a huge performance the other night. I would like to get to the top line if I could, but I'm looking at my crunches here, and I'm still getting to a decent amount of St. Louis 2. Like, if they're just going to go completely overlooked, St. Louis as a whole, like we have Robert Thomas at under 2% ownership. If that's going to be the case, I'll take them for sure, especially in mass multi-entry. I think that's too low. And then we've got O'Reilly at 5%. I mean, a little bit of a different price point, but the O'Reilly line versus the Turris line, at basically the same ownership, to me, that seems like I would be pointing towards the O'Reilly line. Same exact team totals for Nashville and Nashville and St. Louis. Seems like a decent comparison, right? But Dallas really good defensively. Can't see many goals scored here. Gurianov probably scores in a game like this. Seems to always score in low-scoring games. You could be right. I mean, Vegas expects it to be a really low total game, but St. Louis is still projected to score 3 times. I know that's, if you play this game thousands and thousands of times, it's a median outcome. I get that, but if they outdo their expectation here, if they have an outlier performance and they score 4 goals, St. Louis looks really, really cheap. So I think they've looked cheap for a number of games and they've disappointed. And now maybe people say, oh, they're going up against Dallas. It's a 5 total game, under 3 total at home. Let's just get off of them entirely. But I still think they're under owned. So St. Louis 1, once again, they're going to break my heart. Blues just lit up the Stars 5-0 the other day with Bishop in goal. Was that in Dallas? So is this a home and home? I'm trying to remember. Like I always say, all these days, they run together when you play basically every day. On the Star side, there's really nothing I have. I mentioned right off the top. It's just St. Louis is a really tough team to attack when they're playing defense like this. I know Chicago fluked 5 goals against them, and then they did it the other night against Tampa too. So maybe the Blackhawks are just awesome all of a sudden, but I don't see a big performance coming for the Stars here. Let's go to, nothing really on the blue line there that we need to mention. Let's go to Buffalo and Arizona. 2.4 implied total for the Sabres, 3.1 for the Coyotes. Carter Hutton could be Jonas Johansson. Stars on the back-to-back. Sabres on the back-to-back. Ranta going for the Coyotes. Same lines here for Arizona. Arizona 1 looks really good to me. Just wherever Taylor Hall goes is usually where I'm going. And they haven't been seeing opposing top competition like with a ton of regularity these last few home games for Arizona. So if they get to go up against Buffalo 2 and even split time against Buffalo 1 and 2, I think that's this is a pretty big underprice for Arizona. So I like Arizona 1. I'm usually looking at most home teams' top lines, even in these low total games, these middling total games. Not really impressed with what I'm seeing out of Buffalo, and I don't think anybody is. So this is one of those situations too where Hall's going to be maybe double digits, but the rest of the stack might be half of what you get Hall at. So I think it sets up really well for the full stack. Dvorak and Schmaltz, guys that can score, and then you've got the playmaker in Hall at 6,600. Trying to see where I'm ending up on Arizona right now. Yeah, I'm double, triple the field, somewhere in there on the Arizona full stack. I think it is a really good spot. So if you wanted to go to these secondary Arizona lines, that's great. I can't really pick between them. Like they're all the same for me. I mean, we'll probably see the Richardson, Soderberg, Hinestroza line go up against Eichel and Olofsson and Reinhart for a decent chunk of today's game. So they're not going to take away ice time from. I mean, maybe they will actually. They might take away ice time from Taylor Hall, but they probably shouldn't take away too much ice time for Taylor Hall here, trying to get into a playoff spot down the stretch. But maybe that takes away some additional time for these middle 6 for Arizona. So it's difficult to try to pick between 2 and 3. So I'm, for the most part, just sticking with the top line in Arizona. And then on the Buffalo side, if you want to go to Buffalo 1, I suppose, as a contrarian play, I want to see if I got to any of them at all. If the slate started right now, I'd have 2 Eichel shares out of 150. I'm assuming that's full stacks. Not a spot that I'm targeting very much. I know Arizona struggled defensively, but this line's numbers, I mean, you look at Eichel, Olofsson, and Reinhart together. Oops. They're just not good at generating offense at 5-on-5. Like, not good at all. 590-minute sample. And they're below average at expected goals for. Nothing really on the blue line for the Sabres. And then nothing really on the Arizona side. Ekman Larson is 4,400, and I guess he goes with the top line. I'm still going to not get to a lot of Ekman Larson. He's just not a guy I really believe in for DFS very often. So I have 4 Ekman Larson shares out of 150 right now. Arizona won. Buffalo stinks. I agree. Eichel pointless last 3. Eichel playing injured. I mean, maybe that's why he hasn't scored a point in his last 3. But I think just Buffalo sucks. Eichel probably injured from carrying the team on his back all season. We got 2 more games. Let's go to the Jets and the Oilers. 2.8 implied total for the Jets, 3.2 for the Oilers. Hellebuck and Mike Smith are your goalies. No surprise here. I'm just all over Edmonton. I think they've got 2 real lines here. Whether it's is Yamamoto confirmed out for this game? Actually, let me check on this. I thought I saw he was skating yesterday. All right. Yeah. So, a couple of big pieces here. It looks like Yamamoto's out. On the Jet side, it is no Line and no Morrissey. So, look at this defensive corpse for Winnipeg. Kulikov, Pionk, Bulio, DeMello, Boteto, and Tucker Poolman. Not a lot of good players there. Winnipeg's already a team that struggles defensively. And then, like, their top line, I know Scheifele, Wheeler, and Connor, maybe that'll be a stronger line. Maybe they'll get better defensively with Line out, honestly. But I still don't think they're going to be very good. You've got 2 legitimate lines for the Oilers for the first time in forever. Draisaitl, Nugent-Hopkins, and it's been Yamamoto. He's been out the last couple of games. Chason, though, 2,900. Power play 1 time. I'm probably going to end up with a bunch of Edmonton full power play stacks. When Winnipeg takes penalties, they're awful at killing them. One of the worst teams in killing penalties. Edmonton has a very good power play with Connor McDavid in the lineup, which is going to shock no one. You can full stack Edmonton 1, Tyler Ennis, Athanasiou, and of course McDavid. They're pretty cheap. You can definitely full stack Edmonton 2, and then power play stack it like basically any way you want. Maybe you want to make, and you're probably going to end up with at least one of Draisaitl or McDavid, but maybe you want to make a rule and just say you have to end up with one of those 2 when you stack Edmonton or something like that. You could get creative in Fantasy Cruncher with the groups feature if you would like, but I think the full onslaught here is viable for the Oilers. If Hellebuck's off at all here, you could be seeing a pretty big number for the Oilers. So special teams looks great to me. 5-on-5 looks great to me for the Oilers. The pricing looks very good. And then the ownership, like, we've got McDavid significantly lower than the Toronto top line. And it's like, yeah, I know they've got a half goal less of implied total at this point. I think, what do we say the Leafs were at? 3.7, 3.8? 3.6, so 0.4. Call it a half goal. But I don't see much of a difference. In fact, I think you can make a case that Edmonton's the better spot. When you factor in price, especially when you factor in price, ownership, all that. But just straight up, like from a raw point basis, I think you could argue that Edmonton is the better play. So, Edmonton, if it's not Ottawa tonight, it's probably Edmonton. Those are going to be the anchors in a lot of my lineups. They just look incredible to me. I think we're a little bit high on the ownership for Chason as well. Like, I don't think he's going to be 17%. I think he might be the guy that gets left off, so he might be, 8%, and the rest of the guys are mid-teens or something like that. But yeah, Edmonton's the spot for me tonight. I will have some Leafs, but I will be rooting heavily for Edmonton in this late game. On the Jets side, with their lines in flux because no Line, Scheifele, Connor, and Wheeler, I suppose is a fine option, but Edmonton actually hasn't been that terrible of a defense this season. So I'm kind of torn as far as what I want to do with them. Like, if I think about it this way, all right, I like to correlate goalie. Winnipeg 1 is, relatively cheap. It's not a high total, but if the Jets score 3 or 4 or 5 goals, Hellebuck's going to get the win, likely. He's probably going to see 35 plus shots. And if the Jets score that many goals, you could be looking at a massive Winnipeg 1 spot where they just dominate the game. So I kind of like Winnipeg on the other side. I don't think I'm going to have a lot of game stacks. I don't usually force in game stacks. It's probably going to be one or the other in my lineup by lineup for Jets 1 versus Edmonton 2 and Edmonton 1. And I don't even know if you can fit them, but I like correlating the goalie with either side. Goalies, we'll go over that at the end. Someone remind me. Well, I'll just go over it right now. Oh, by the way, if you guys could drop a like, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you for spending part of your Saturday with us. I can't believe this many of you are watching right now, but it does not go unnoticed. And also, if you guys could head on over to iTunes and the Awesemo _com Twitter page, there is a podcast giveaway where if you subscribe, rate, and give us a 5-star rating, and then write a quick review about what you like about the shows or just really anything. We're trying to build our podcast up, and if you could go over and review, you have a chance to win a free Awesemo Plus monthly pass. So missed the beginning of the show, but you can watch it back in a few minutes when we're done here. Okay, I think I lost my train of thought. Oh, goalies. Antti Ranta right now is my highest owned guy. I kind of like Lindgren. I mean, I don't like Lindgren, but you'd prefer to be priced, but just Montreal goalie. I think Freddie Anderson's okay. We'll get to the Pittsburgh goalie, Tristan Jarry, likely. Those are a few guys that I have some of. And like I mentioned, I think if you're going to Winnipeg 1, Hellebuck's a pretty good option for cheap. If you're going to Edmonton 1, Smith is at a reasonable price. If making single entry or 3 max, who are you locking? I wouldn't be locking anyone probably, but I really love the spot in Edmonton, and I love the spot in Ottawa. I know those are going to be popular together, so maybe it's one or the other. But I do like those two spots quite a bit. And actually, let's get to the last game in just a second, because I think maybe some people are soured on Pittsburgh as well, and I'm not really ready to move off them. Ethan Bear, 4K, playing good minutes, playing top power play. That's really all you need to know, and then you guys know my thoughts about the Edmonton forward. So, yeah, I'm going to play a lot of Ethan Bear. Pionk at 5K, more of a correlation play for Pionk, but I'm actually getting to some of him as a one-off. We've got him at pretty low ownership, and that's not too bad if you're going to Winnipeg 1. Yeah, Malkin line. We'll get there. Last game of the night, 3.3 implied total for the Penguins, 2.6 for the Sharks. Tristan Jarry expected to go, was Matt Murray last night. Pittsburgh is they're struggling, but this might right the ship here. Marty Jones for the Sharks. I mean, if there's ever a cure for a team that's having trouble scoring, it might be Marty Jones and this depleted Sharks roster. So what we got here is Couture, Kane, Gregor, Thornton, Meyer, LeBanc. Now, Pittsburgh was not great last night. We know this, but I think they do still have 2 lines you can go to, and 1 line especially that I'm really interested in, and that is the Malkin, Hornquist, Russ line. I know they're all top power play, but people that hand build tonight, they're not going to get there very often, I don't think. just because it might be a cognitive bias. I'm not sure. I love Pittsburgh too. I think we're going to see Couture, Kane, and whatever plug is on their line, probably go up against Crosby. That seems like a pretty good spot actually for the Couture line. Crosby line, Cliffy and I talked about it yesterday, really just not playing good defensively. And then you look at the numbers. So, okay, you got that matchup, Couture versus Crosby, Zucker, Sheary, or even if it's against the Malkin line, still like the Malkin line. But then you look at the numbers for the Thornton, Meyer, LeBanc line. They're so poor defensively, but, I mean, they've been really good offensively. So you got to give them credit. Defensively, they're a disaster. So Malkin, Rust, Hornquist, I'm hoping they spend a ton of time against the Thornton line. I think they would smash them. And you get that top power play time. Sharks still taking a bunch of penalties. And it just seems like a really good spot. It seems like a pretty tilting spot. You know, if you're playing Pittsburgh these last few games and you're frustrated and now you're like, all right, I'm done with them. And then they go into the Sharks. It's a back-to-back. I mean, people can talk themselves off this spot, I think, pretty easily. But I'm still there. I'm still really, really liking Pittsburgh. Second line, I hope they're what we have them projected for right now. I think that's really, really low. So if you can put the last few games behind you, this might be the get-right spot for Pittsburgh. And I think if that happens, it's going to be this second line. You could go to the top line, you know, if I'm just dead wrong in the matchups. I'm not ever 100% on matchups, but if I'm wrong here and it's, you know, LeBanc line, LeBanc, Thornton, Meyer is going up against Crosby, Zucker, and Sheary, probably going to be a pretty good spot there for the Crosby line. So on the Sharks, the way I would like to attack is either with Couture, Kane, or some sort of power play stack for the Sharks. Going to try to limit the amount of Thornton I get, though. I know he's 3,200, but boy, like, he just does not do a ton. I guess he does have decently talented wingers, right? He's got Meyer and LeBanc, and they've been good. So if you wanted to go to Joe, I'm sure, but it's probably good I don't hand build lineups too often because I would just miss out on the Joe Thornton 3-assist game that you see once every season at this point. But yeah, if I could do something like Couture, Kane, and LeBanc, I think that's probably the best way to attack it. Or Timo one-off 5K. I think I put him in the cheat sheets. I like him as a one-off here. Burns, 7,900. It was fun when we could get Burns at 6K a few weeks ago. But those days are gone. Burns right now, top 5 owned defenseman for me. There's no one that I'm hammering tonight. But I'm double the field right now on Burns, which I'm pretty comfortable with. I'll play him as a one-off. I never make any rules about him. Pittsburgh has been playing terrible. I agree. I mean, that's just a fact. They just haven't been playing well. But I think this could be the recipe, and I'm hoping low ownership comes with it. So I'm fully prepared to get burned by Pittsburgh. That's fine. But this game is not on the live final slate, so those guys don't have to worry about it, which is good for them. They don't have to be ridiculous like me and play a team that's really struggling and try to be first on them or whatever. But I think for the main slate, this makes for a really good spot at low ownership. End of a long road trip. Teams usually don't do well. Hard to go Pitt tonight, but since I'm fading them, they will go off for 7 goals tonight, right? I'm ready to be hurt by Edmonton and Pitt. As am I. I am ready to be hurt again. Isn't that what Michael Scott says? It's something like that. I may have butchered it, but that's what he says. Something along those lines. And I'm ready, man. Edmonton, Pittsburgh, I don't want to say I'm fading Toronto because I'm not. I'll have some Toronto. But I'm rooting for them to not break the slate. I'm rooting for the late night hammers tonight. Edmonton, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, all the great teams. This should be good. This should be a fun one. I usually target half the teams on the slate for the mini-max: Blues, Avs, Canadiens, Maple Leafs, Senators, Coyotes, Oilers, Sabres in that order. You coming for me? All right, there you go. Yeah, at the gates 97. You got it. That's the quote. So I probably butchered it, but this is a good slate. This is good. Again, if you're watching, if you're at the live final, if you're getting ready, I mean, good luck. First of all, good luck to my buddy Josh Harris. I'm hoping he takes it down, but bunch of really awesome players. So exciting. I'm sure Nashville is a blast. I think they got to go to that Predators game where that was the one they came back on with like a .1 left or something. Granlund buried it. But don't play FanDuel. I feel good tonight. All right, you can have FanDuel. I don't know if I'm going to play over there, but Yahoo is the sponsor. So go play on Yahoo. If for whatever reason, just if you like money, if you like lower management fees, if you like playing against less Awesemos and Bricks and Tom JKs, those guys are focused on other sites. So take advantage of the smaller sites. Yahoo, take advantage of getting up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, which is cash on Yahoo DFS. Promo code Awesemo is how you redeem that on your initial deposit. So go do that. Drop us a like if you do appreciate the content. It helps us continue to do this for free. It will be myself at the very least on Monday. Let me see what we got for the slate, so I'm not telling fibs here. Oh, it's a 2-gamer. It'll just be myself. We will recap. We'll probably recap tonight and Sunday if there's any good contests. We'll recap the live final, and it'll be cool. So good luck tonight, guys. I will see you on Monday.